Hello everyone. Hello everyone. This is Ado, and today I have filmed a very easy egusi soup recipe, and I hope you guys enjoy this video. And please don't forget to like, subscribe, and share the video. Thank you for watching. I'll see you guys later. Bye. Hello everyone. Today I'm bringing you a very simple and straightforward egusi soup recipe, and if you would like to see how I achieve this finished product, please stay tuned and watch to the rest of this video. I would have to say that this video is quite long because there is no other way of showing you the details without making it more than 20 minutes long. So please don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment. Thank you, and stay tuned to the end of the video. I'm just going to run through the ingredients really quickly. So I'm using bell peppers, that's 1.5 whole large bell peppers, some habanero peppers, the crayfish, that's what that looks like, the egusi seeds, which is going to be grounded. The crayfish is also going to be grounded, and I didn't have enough whole egusi, so I bought the grounded one, which I'm going to show you here in a bit. So that's what the grounded egusi is going to look like after you grind it. I'm going to use some onions for this recipe. I'm going to use that green vegetable. We call it green, but I don't know what the name is originally. Just a small bunch there. The vegetable is quite tough. It's not doesn't have a lot of liquid in it, but I like the taste. I'm also going to use some spinach. I actually used that whole spinach and half of the other one sitting in the back of the crayfish. So that's what that looks like. I'm using some uziza. I don't know the Igbo if I pronounce it correctly, but I like to use that. And that's a little bit of the dry fish I have that I'm going to use for the recipe. And to begin this recipe, it's quite the egusi soup is really easy. It's just the prep takes a long time. So I'm just going to go ahead and wash the vegetables. You want to wash this really well because they have sand in it. So you're going to rinse that out, wash it well, and then take the vegetable out of the water and throw away the water so that you get rid of the sand, you know. So you take the vegetables away from the bowl, throw that water away, and then rinse it again. And I'm going to go with a little bit of vinegar, just a distilled white vinegar, and just to disinfect it because it was just sitting out in the open in the store when I bought it. So, you know, with all this illness going around, you have to take the necessary precautions. You should do this regardless, even though, you know, there was no epidemic going on. So I'm washing it really well, and I let that sit in for like 5 minutes before I rinsed it out into a sieve to let the excess water drip out. I'm going to do the same thing with the green vegetable, the other one I showed you guys, just to rinse it out and place it in a sieve, and it will be chopped later. For the green vegetable, it's a bit different because it was on the stem, so you want to cut the leaves off from the stem. The reason you do this is because the stem is quite tough. If it's fresh, if the stem is fresh, you can chop it with the vegetables. And how you check if the stem is fresh? If you break it, it should snap. So if it doesn't snap like that, then you know that the vegetables is old, and then you have to throw it away. Or you can, if you like it chewy, you can put it, but usually you don't want it chewy. You want the vegetable to be quite soft and easy to eat. So here I'm just going in and cutting off the vegetable from the stem, keeping the fresh stem like I said earlier. This is quite a process, but it's all worth it in the end. So I'm showing you this in detail just so if you do decide to use these vegetables, or if this is what you have at home, this is how you're going to do it. And when we're done, we're going to wash it just the way we did the spinach with a distilled vinegar to get rid of any bacteria as well as any sand that could be in it. So yeah, like I said previously, we're just going to do what we did for the spinach. So you really want to do this thoroughly, because there's nothing worse than eating a sandy soup. You know, the soup tastes so nice, but when you bite into it, it's like sand and crunchy, and it's not nice. So you really want to take your time with this and get rid of all the sand. So here I'm just going to take the vegetables from the water and drop it in the sieve, and then I'll show you guys the sand that was in it, that was in the vegetable. That's why I was very cautious about that, and I took the time to show you how I did it. But that's it for the vegetables. You just rinse it out, and then you're going to proceed to chopping it up. In the next clip, we're going to start dicing it. So yeah, it's quite detailed, but I just feel like there's no other way of doing the soup without showing you these small details. That makes a huge difference. So our vegetables is ready. So now I'm going to show you how you're going to chop your vegetables. You take the spinach like that, pick all the stems to one side, and take as much or as little as you want. In one hand, I just have a small bit there, and I'm going to go ahead and snap the stem up, and then hold that on one hand, and then take my knife and I'm going to chop it. That's how I do it. Of course, if I'm doing it without filming, it's not going to be this pretty or this elegant looking. It's always a mess, but because I'm filming, I'm taking my time. And you just want to do this for the entire vegetables that you have, depending on how much you want to use. So that's how I do it. I'm going to do that for all of them. I'm going to speed the video up here. I think it's quite self-explanatory from here on. And there you go. And then just put everything in a bowl. You make sure you have as many bowls as you would, because you're going to need a lot of those bowls. Remember, you're washing, you're drying, you're cutting, and you're putting everything, waiting for the time that you're actually going to use it in the soup. So this is the green vegetables. I really don't know the original name for this. We just call it green. But I know it's just tough, and it has a very unique texture and taste, and it tastes really, really nice. I'm not sure, I've never really heard anyone that say they don't like it, but I'm pretty sure there's some people that don't like it, but I like it. So I'm just going to take that bit there. And this one doesn't really have a lot of stem. We're just going to go ahead and cut as small as we can. So we're just dicing it up just the way we did here previously. Just like that. And that's very, make sure you have a sharp knife so that you can cut as fast as you can. But again, you can always take your time with this, you know, there's no rush. I want to cause an accident now. So we're gonna put this and keep it for when we're going to need it, which is towards the end of the soup making process. So that's our vegetables ready. I zoomed in so you can see the difference in both vegetables. Now we're going to prep our egusi seeds. You want to like pick it to make sure there are no foreign objects, because you know, this is, you buy it in the market and everything is done by hand, and the women that do this are always sitting outside or on the ground or on the floor, and sometimes you find like foreign objects in it. So it's very important that you clean your egusi well. I even started rinsing it out because there's sometimes you can't even see the micro or the really small particles. As you can see those particles in it. So I'm just going to throw that away. And rinse it. And I will really tell everyone to start doing this, because I found so many different items in this in the Nigerian, you know, ingredients that you buy in the market. So I'm gonna go ahead and grind it. Don't the blender was dirty because I did the crayfish first, but when I was editing it I decided to show the egusi first. So that's just a dry blender, just to grind dry ingredients. This Ninja blender comes in 3 different sizes. So this is the smallest size, and I use it for the dry ingredients. And you have the medium size and the large size. The large size, if you watch my other videos, I use it for the blending tomatoes when I'm making like sauce, like tomatoes, chili and stuff. Small one I use for my dry ingredients. It's actually made for dry ingredients, as you can see. And you always want to make sure you're grinding in bits when you're grinding your dry ingredients, because you're going to open it up and scoop the sides to make sure that everything is grinding uniformly. Anything that's stuck to the surface of the blender, you're going to use a spoon and scoop it out and grind until you get the texture you want. And this is the texture we want. We want it to look just like that. I don't know how to describe this, but you've seen the before and after. You just want it to be kind of, you know, just a mash, not really a creamy yet, just a mash. So that's our crayfish, and we're really going to it took me almost an hour to pick through this crayfish. Reason being, the last time I was using crayfish, when I was picking it, I found an earring in it, a gold earring. Ever since then, I'm very, very thorough when I'm cleaning and picking out the crayfish, because you will find some amazing things in this and you don't want to get sick. So take your time with this and pick, pick and sort as much as you can. You know, the people in Nigeria do the best they can with the resources they have, so they don't have the equipment that they will need to do a thorough job. So the remaining labor that will come, you have to provide that labor to make sure your food is as safe as possible. Nothing special here, just grinding like we do everything. And I grinded a bit more than I needed because I'm going to keep the rest in the freezer for the next time I need our crayfish. So that's what it looks like. The crayfish adds some sweetness and a little bit of smoky fish flavor to your soups, and it gives you that authentic Nigerian taste that most people love. And then this is the medium-sized Ninja blender, and I'm just going to grind all the peppers in there. The bell pepper was frozen, so when I thawed it out, I could. That's why I was able to, like, you know, tear it the way I did. It's not like it's plastic. So I'm just gonna go ahead and grind that and set aside for when I need it. And as you can see, the soup process was going to take your time. It's really the prep. The prep takes 70% of the soup making process, so you really need to keep that in mind. And of course it took me a whole lot longer. It's just I did some editing to make it look shorter. And this is the onions that we had. Going to dice it up just like that, in no particular. I just want to dice it just large enough and small enough to cook. I don't have any particular, you're not even going to see it anyways because it's going to be cooked completely down. So that's what it looks like. And for this recipe I'm going to use the beef tripe or shaki. This is the really soft one. It was already pre-cooked, I think, because it wasn't hard at all. And that's the beef shank. That's the beef that has the tendons in it. That gives you that different texture. And we're going to use beef liver. This is all the preference of mine. Usually people use goat meat, but I didn't have any. I just used what I had. So I'm just going to cut the shank. It's really soft. It was really easy to cut. Whatever size you want. I just went for a medium to small size. I'm the only one that eats it. My sister doesn't like it, so I cut it all up, and I just used half of this and I kept the rest in the freezer for when I'm going to need it for a different recipe. So that's that. I'm going to set that aside. And then the next I'm going to cut the beef shank, and this is quite challenging because the tissue and the tendons and everything makes it really hard to cut. So I would say just take your time with this, and you want to just make sure that you're as careful as possible, or just get like someone to do it for you. So that's that. So like I said, this took me longer. I just edited it down to make the video shorter. Even with the editing, it's still over 30 minutes. So I just wanted to get as much details as I could in the video. That's a beef liver. I like it. I grew up eating this, and this is probably, I would say most definitely, this is an acquired taste. And I'm just gonna cut that up into medium pieces. It's really easy. It's really soft, and it does have like blood patches in it. So if you're not careful, you can have blood splashing all over you. But just take your time and be careful when you're cutting this. So that's all the meat we're going to use for our recipe. I cleaned up everything, disinfected my hands, and that's the meats that I have chosen for my recipe. Again, you can use whatever meat you want. You can use chicken, you can use goat, just whatever you want. And that's our dry fish that I'm going to prep later. This is going to add that smoky fish flavor to the soup. So I'm starting off boiling the hardest meat first, the toughest meat that takes longer to cook, which is the shank. So I'm going to put in the onions, just a little bit of the onions that we've diced previously, just like that. And then I'm just going to go with my favorite meat seasoning, which is the ginger, black pepper, a lot of black pepper because I like it, a little bit of cloves, that's some nutmeg, and I'm going to use 2 Nigerian Maggi cubes. Not all Maggi cubes are created the same. Make sure you're using the one that is the Nigerian one to get that Nigerian flavor that we all desire. So I'm going to add a little bit of water to this just to start the cooking process, because the liquid from the meat is actually going to cook a majority of the time. It's going to cook the meat the majority of the time. So this is like 15 minutes later. I just opened it to check, and this is going to cook for at least 30 to 40 minutes because it's quite tough. And then I go in with a softer meat that takes less time, which is that shaki that's already made pre-cooked. So that's going to boil a little bit. And then add your liver. The liver cooks in like 5 minutes, literally. Because there's no like tissue, there's no tendon, there's no muscle. It's just, the liver is just an organ. So it takes literally, I don't even think it takes 10 minutes. So you have to watch it, if not it's just going to dissolve. So you might even need to add more seasoning as you go. You make sure you taste the meat only when it's completely cooked before you can add more seasoning. But I think I added a little bit of salt to it because it was already quite flavorful. So that's that. And when I'm done cooking my meat, I let it sit for like 2 hours so that the broth tastes good. This is the smoked fish we had. I added some hot water to it to get rid of any sand and any extra flavor I didn't want. So after you add your hot water, you take the meat out of the hot water and throw that liquid away, and then I rinse the meat with some cold water, the fish, and I'm going to set that aside. It's quite the process, I know. So now we're going to start making the soup. Finally, I'm going to go in with the, palm oil. This is about a cup. I think it's about a cup and a half. The measurements kind of escape me because I don't really measure anything. I just do approximation. I'm putting some red onions, but I put loads of it because I love the flavor that this gives you when you fry onions with palm oil. It's just something about how it makes everywhere smell so good. And then I let that fry for like 10 minutes. And I added the pepper mixture that we grinded earlier. And that's going to fry for another 10 to 15 minutes. So just take your time here. Takes a lot of love to make this soup. Love and patience. So please take your time. And just cover it. Make sure you stick around the kitchen. Don't go watch TV now. You want to stir. Make sure nothing is burning. Make sure everything is cooking well. And like I said, I cooked that for 10 to 15 minutes until you see the onions have completely dissolved in the mixture. That is the Egusi blend that we made, and I'm going to make that into a paste by adding water to it. My mom does this. The reason why they do this, I have no idea. But I just add some water, and then I'm going to make everything into a blend, a paste. A very thick paste. You're not making like liquid paste. You want it to be almost like, you want it to be able to mold it. So that's that. So now I'm going to take that in little bits and put into the palm oil and pepper mix that we have cooking. Take that in little scoops. I think my only explanation for why they do this is just so it's easier for the thing to cook evenly. Because egusi, for it to taste really nice, you have to cook it for a very long time. So that's my only logical explanation for why that paste mixture is made. But if you know why, just comment down below. I have no idea. So now I'm just going to stir, it in, and this is going to cook for like 30 minutes. Literally, you're almost like frying it. You're going to keep cooking and stirring until you see that paste now becomes kind of grainy. It looks like couscous. That's what you're going for. You want the melon particles to separate when you stir it like that. That's how you know that it's ready. So I just kept cooking it until I made sure it was completely cooked. And you can see how each of the grains have separated. So that's how I think it's cooked. That's how I make it personally. Now I'm going to add in the broth from the meats that we cooked earlier. That's a liquid. This is what's going to give it all the flavor, some of the flavor that we want. And I'm just going to stir it in. And then I'm just going to cover it up and let it cook for another 10 minutes. You see how the egusi has settled under? You see how the oil is floating on top of the egusi? That means it's cooked. But I'm still going to continue cooking it until I get very thick. You know? A very thick mixture. Just like that. Again, you can see how the oil is floating on top of the egusi. I'm going to add 2 teaspoons. Well, that's regular teaspoons of crayfish. The crayfish grind that we made earlier. Stir it in. You can see how thick it is. That's what you want. Add a little bit more crayfish because I just wanted it to taste really good. And I noticed with egusi you have to make sure your seasoning are quite heavy because the egusi absorbs. This is very greasy, so it absorbs a lot of the flavor that you add. So you might want to, you know, add more seasoning than you usually do, but make sure you're tasting as you go as well. So right now I just added the meat in there. And that's just going to cook for like 5 minutes. I think I went in with the dry fish after this, so that everything cooks very well, cooks uniformly. Again, make sure you're hanging around the kitchen when you're making this, because right now you're just adding everything and you don't want anything to burn. You work too hard for it to be completely burned. So again, take your time with this. The good thing about Nigerian soup is like you can eat it for a couple of days. So all work is not in vain. You put the rest in the freezer and then you can eat it for a week or 2 if you want to. So just let that cook for another 5 minutes, and you can see nice and thick. The oil is floating. The meat has absorbed the flavor. Now we're going to go in and add our dry fish. Just like that. And you don't want to stir too much so the fish doesn't completely dissolve. I'm just going to push it where I want it to get, where I want it to be, and I'm just going to cover it and put it on low heat now. I forgot to mention that after I put the meat in, I've been cooking on medium heat. So right now I'm putting on not completely low, but kind of like a medium low heat. And I added a little bit more seasoning to it because you know, like I said, the egusi absorbs a lot of the flavor, and you might have to go back in and add more flavor as you go. So I added 1 cube. It wasn't Maggi cube, I can't remember what that one's called. But you can use a Maggi cube if you want to. And I put it on medium low heat so that it doesn't burn. It's quite thick, there's not much water in it anymore. And I forgot this clip, so what I did was I put the uziza and the green vegetables first because those are quite tough, like I mentioned earlier. I let that cook for like 3 minutes and then I went in with the spinach. You can put as much spinach as you want. I know people who are like on a healthy diet put more vegetables, but I just put just not too much. Just put just enough for my preference. You can add as little as much as you want. Some people don't even add vegetables. You can just eat it like that, or you can just use the vegetable as a garnish. But I add the vegetable as part of the soup. It's part of the main ingredient for me. It's not just a garnish or a side piece or a decorative piece. It's part of the main soup. So this is pretty much done. You're not supposed to cook the vegetables for too long. Actually, some people want to put the vegetables, you just take it off the burner. But I chose to cook it for a little bit longer. Just a personal preference of mine. So that's the soup. That's a complete recipe. And I chose to put in to show you guys making my way of making fufu yam flour. So that's the boiling water. I just put the yam flour in it and I'm stirring as I go. And by the time I was making this, I was so tired. My arm was hurting so bad that, you know, it wasn't as graceful as I thought it would be. But this is how you make, you know, luang. We call it luang in tea. But this is how we make it. You just put in hot water and stir as you go. You don't want to put too much because it's going to get too hard. And then you want to go, you want to add water to make it as soft as you want it to be or as hard as you want it to be. So I sped up the clip here because it's pretty much the same thing. I'm adding water because it was too much. It was too hard, so I'm just going to add and stir. Make sure the heat is on low to medium heat. So you're just going to stir that until you get a mashed potato. Not really mashed potato, but you want it to be would you say creamy? You want it to be thick, but you also want it to be soft and creamy at the same. I don't know how to explain it, but you see what I'm talking about. You're just going to mix, turn, mix. Yeah, my arm was killing me when I was done, and I'm adding hot water to it just to make sure it's not too hard. And I think the mistake I made was I added too much flour to the water that I had, so I had to adjust and add more water. But as it was getting softer, it became easier to turn. So that's the texture I was going for. You can see that. So, oh yeah, you want like a doughy texture. That's the word I would say. Now when you're making like pastries, you know, like when you're rolling out the flour, that's the kind of texture you want here. A bit thicker though. So that's pretty much done. And now your meal is ready. You just have to serve it out. And dish it out for your family. And hopefully they appreciate the love that you put into this recipe because it is not easy at all. So that's the final soup. And that's our fufu. That's going to be the side dish or the main dish, depending on, you know, how hungry you are. This is a lot of calories, guys. Carbohydrate and high fat. Oh man, this is a cheat meal. This is not something you eat at 12 midnight. Even though you can eat at 12 midnight if you want to. But yeah, this is a lot of calories. You eat this when you're going to the farm in the morning. So right there, I'm just dishing the fufu out. What I do is I take it and I mold it into a bowl that is wet. Make sure the bowl is wet or damp. And then you just mold it in there, rub, and then transfer it to your plate so it looks pretty. Just like that. You can do as much as little as you want. And then we're going to dish the soup out. Look how pretty that looks. So just take as much soup as you want. Put some meat, put some fish, put some shaki, some liver, however you want it. The good thing about this soup is you can eat it with rice, you can eat it with yam, you know, you're not just restricted to what you can eat it to. Not like any dish is restrictive, but it's very versatile, is what I'm trying to say. And that's the recipe, guys. That's the final dish. And I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Please like, subscribe, and share. Thank you. Bye bye.